What's going on, YouTube? Hope everybody's doing well. Saturday, some rough storms came through the southeast last night, especially Kentucky, Missouri. We pray for those people. I know the tragic loss of life, especially when we have the advanced warning systems we have nowadays, and people still get caught in the path of these storms and get their lives taken away from them. It's a bad deal. So pray for those people and their families, the people missing their loved ones this morning that just snatched up in the middle of the night and taken away forever. It'd be a rough ordeal to have to go through, you know. It's senseless. There's no reason for people not to have weather radios. A lot of your local volunteer fire stations, stuff like that, give away weather radios. Your emergency management agencies in the county you live in. Just always be aware of what's going on around you and your surroundings. And a lot of things like that can totally be avoided very easily. I mean, take $1 worth of gasoline to get in a vehicle and go somewhere. You catch a ride with a neighbor, call the local police department, they'll come get you. I mean, you get into a situation where you have a tornado coming your way, you need to be underground. Anyway, pray for those people, speedy recovery. Pray for the ones that lost loved ones. Pray for their loved ones that were taken. Okay, I want to bring some awareness about Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers today from Hendersonville, Tennessee. 16 years old, been missing since February the 25th, 2024. Last seen that night last talked to that night about 10:30. Mother Katie Proudfoot was at home with him and just vanished from the face of the earth that night and not been seen since. I know there's a lot going on in Nova Scotia right now with Jack and Lily Sullivan. Maybe that whole ordeal is going to come to an end very soon for them. That's got to be rough for the people that live around there, and it's got to be rough for the family too. You know, it's a bad situation. No matter what's happened in that whole ordeal, it's a bad situation. But today we're talking about Sebastian. And what could have happened with Sebastian, where he may be and what's going on. I know, my belief is that he was forced out of the house that night. Probably with his mother was under threat. And so he left willingly, or not willingly, but against his will with somebody. And it's either an organized abduction or someone really close in the neighborhood or something that knew that Chris worked out of town, that Sebastian was home alone with his mom, somebody that had seen him get off the bus in the evenings. I know he stayed at home some by himself in the evenings, and so it could be somebody that sit there, watched him get off the bus every time and could see where his bedroom in the house was and stuff like that. And I mean, they're not on a police radar. Or it could have been an organized abduction. I believe if it was an organized abduction, that it was more than likely done by his father. I'm not saying this is what's happened. It's just we don't know where he's at. I mean, we've never seen really anything like this where there's just no even kind of foggy idea of where the boy may be. I mean, it's clear that he didn't walk out of the house just to run away. I don't think that he was being hid by his mom because of a custody ordeal. He was 15 years old at the time. 15-year-old. I know that where I live, a 15-year-old can go to the court, tell them where they want to stay, and the judge will grant them the child that if they're over 12 years old or older. And at 15 or 16, you're able to go emancipate yourself away from your parents. So if you wanted to run away, you don't have to just run out into the woods and hide. You could just go to the police or to some legal official somewhere, get the paperwork done, and emancipate yourself away from your parents if it was that bad. And I don't believe that was the situation either. So I mean, it only leaves a few avenues to go down. I know there's somebody, I'm not going to call her a creator, she's a fucking idiot's what she is going to, a representative of this kid's father, and he allows this to go on to say that this boy was dismembered and strewn out from Hendersonville to Memphis or something is absolutely ludicrous. It's one of the most vile, vulgar, retarded, excuse my R word, whatever. I'm not that way, but she's a freaking idiot. She should be locked up in a mental asylum Somebody should go have her committed, go to your local courthouse, take out the paperwork, and have them lock her ass up for a mental evaluation. This lady's not stable. Why would you say something like that about a kid like that? You're telling me that this guy came home from Memphis, killed this kid, cut him up, cleaned up the mess, took the body away, nobody's seen anything, and they did such a good job of cleaning everything up that when the police arrived at 6:30 the next morning, they had 8 hours to do all this now, that when the police arrived at 6:30 the next morning, they didn't find a single drop of blood anywhere. No hair, no blood, no nothing. She watches too much Dexter, too much TV, her head's in the freaking clouds, she's being spiteful. She's not really out for the benefit of these kids at all. She's on the Nova Scotia deal, talking about how the stepfather is being over helpful, but then with Chris Proudfoot, he sat on his ass and didn't do anything. You can't have it both ways. Come on, lady. One or the other. You don't get your cake and eat it too. You're just being freaking greedy, selfish, and crazy. It's just the most vulgar thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't pay attention to her. And I'm sorry I just got off on that. I'm going to get back on track now with Sebastian, but I had to get that out of my system because it just irritates the shit out of me. So, with Sebastian, like I say, I think someone may have watched him in the neighborhood or something to get off the bus every day, knew where his bedroom was. They may have even been into that house before and not done anything. Just, like Brian Koberger probably done with Idaho 4. He probably went in, tested the waters before he went in and committed the crime of murder, So whoever took Sebastian, it was either an arranged abduction. People were given the location and the way to get in the house and what to do to get him out of the house and everything. And I'm not saying this is what's happened either. But when you start thinking about that, you start thinking about, well, who could pull something like that off, right? I mean, if you ask Betty, it's the military. She's fucking crazy. Anyway, I mean, they could do it, but that's not what we do. Veterans don't go around just committing freaking murder, making people disappear. What a nut. Anyway, I can't stand her, by the way, if you didn't know. Anyway, it could be it's an extremist group or something, that would have a compound. They have their own security that the government just can't go in and take a look just because. And I was thinking maybe Scientology for a while. Maybe he was somewhere at a Scientology compound, Clearwater, Florida, or maybe in California, where they have such a high security you can't even get into their compound, much less law enforcement get into the compound and look around. So if they're abducted, and they're one of the number one groups in the United States for trafficking children, the Scientology Church of Scientology is. So when you look into the extremist groups there around Harrisonville, Tennessee, the first one that pops up is the Eschew Folk Assembly, which is, and I'm going to refer to them as the AFA from now, but they spell it like ASATRUA, I think. Folk, F-O-L-K, Assembly. They moved to Middle Tennessee in December of 2022. They bought a 70-acre compound. They've built a large command post there. They are building a school for children, and they have gated security. You're not going to get in there. You're not just going to walk up there and look around. I mean, they're in the middle of a 70-acre compound, and they have a big building built. You can look it up. You can go to Wikipedia. Their founder, Stephen McNally, has ties to California, to Texas, and then to Tennessee, which is kind of ironic. We know somebody else that maybe in this family that has those ties from California to Texas to Tennessee, and their compound just so happens to be an hour away from where the father may live, an hour and a half from Hendersonville. I'm not saying this is what's happened, but you got to think, if there's an arranged abduction like that, who would do something that way? And it would take an extremist group, somebody like that, to do it. I mean, and how would they hide him? They would have to have a compound somewhere where people just not going to see this kid. They could keep him hid away for a while and nobody know it. And I mean, this happens a lot. I'm not saying that this particular group is around abducting children or abducting anybody. I'm not saying that. But, you got to ask yourself, you know, where would you meet somebody like that? Where would you meet somebody, a member of that organization? They're not out here on the street corners, you know, handing out pamphlets. Hey, come join us. It's not like that. You probably run into somebody like that in a correctional facility, right? I mean, these people, they do their protests and stuff, and they get people get arrested. People get arrested for a lot of stuff. I've been arrested myself. I'm not saying they're awful people or anything. I don't know that much about them. I do know that they're like Odinists. You know, they're into the Nordic religion. I think it's kind of like a Wicca thing. I'm not one of them. I don't study that religion. Not going to. Don't care anything about it. I know what I read about it. It's a pre-Christian type of religion group. They are a white supremacist group, more or less. Because they only believe in European Christians, and they have some radical views. But you would meet somebody like that in a correctional facility. You know, I'm not saying this is what's happened. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying you have to think this way to find this kid, because the situation with Sebastian, he's just gone. He's just like somebody come down, sucked him up the chimney of the house, and then he's never to be seen again. And that's just crazy to me. So it takes a organized people or person to do something that way, or somebody that's really close by that's able to, you know, put him. I don't even want to go down that path, but it could be. It's one of those two things to me. It's almost, at first I was thinking maybe he got out with some kids in the neighborhood. Something happened to that retention pond, and they moved him because the dog went to the retention pond and jumped in, and maybe some. But that would take a conspiracy of several people. You know, probably 3 or 4 teenagers, and then you're going to have some adults involved, and it's just too many people involved. When you have that many people involved, you're going to get caught. You can't, more than one person, you're going to get caught. You can't even tell your dog, or somebody's going to say something to somebody eventually. And with as much money as offered being rewarded, much attention has been around this, I think if something like that would have happened, then we would probably know about it by now. But if he's a member of one of these extremist groups, they probably don't even realize there's a reward out or anything else. I don't know if they would even keep up with what's going on with him. Their main concern would be to keep him hidden away from the public, you know, where they know he's not going to be found. And they don't have to worry about who's looking for who if you can keep that hidden like that. I'm not saying those people have him or anything. I'm just saying it's an option. It's an hour away. They're a supremacist group. They have the compound and the facilities to do this. I don't know exactly what their religious beliefs are. I don't know. I mean, that's something that maybe the FBI, TBI, hopefully looks into. I didn't realize there were so many extremist groups around here in Tennessee, but there's a lot. Most of them are like the Aryan Brotherhood or something like that, and they're not abducted kids. You know, they're out rioting on the streets and all that. But the AFA, you don't hear anything about them. And now they've decided to move to a compound in Middle Tennessee and set up camp. And I mean, evidently they're a pretty big society. I think they've been around since like 1997 or something. And what possesses them to move into Middle Tennessee to headquarters would have to be because of the terrain in Tennessee, mountainous terrain, and they could put the compound there where, you know, it's kind of like a Ruby Ridge thing. It'd be hard to get in on top of them. Maybe get some surveillance from the air, but you know, with the kind of facility they got built there, you can go on Wikipedia and read about them, and it's very interesting. It's just a lot to it. And I'm not good at making these videos where I can show you what I'm reading and everything just yet. I'm not that. My biggest goal is to bring some awareness to Sebastian, not let his case go cold. I really would like to see him found. I would really like to know just what has happened to this kid, because it really just it scrambles my brain to think about it. It's so not common to just have a kid just dissipate into thin air. It's almost like he was abducted. But anyway, I hope everybody's having a really good Saturday. Keep Sebastian in your prayers. Keep Jack and Lily in your prayers. But keep Betty in your prayers too. She needs them. I mean, come on. Anybody that thinks like that definitely needs your prayers. That's just crazy to me. I could go on for 30 minutes or an hour about that crazy woman. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the weather while it's nice before it gets too hot. If you have a chance, you're around somewhere where you think he might be, or always keep your eyes open in the public. See somebody that looks like him, just call his name or something. He could. I believe he's out here somewhere. I really do. I believe he's out here alive somewhere. I just don't think he's been disposed of. I mean, I don't know that, but I really want to keep the thought of him being alive in the front of my mind. That's where I'd like to be with it, and I hope that's where most of you are at with it. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good one. We'll see you later.